This is a presentation of Epicenter Entertainment, LLC.
And welcome back to 3 Count Wrestling, where this is probably the biggest interview of all of our interviews. It is our extreme privilege, pleasure, and honor to be joined by the former Smash of Demolition, the former Blacktop Bully, the former Crusher Khrushchev, and the former Mr. Hole-in-One, Barry Darsow. Barry, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fantastic. There are a few other names to that, too.
Repo Man, for one.
Mm-hmm.
Repo Man, Darsow, Zarmongo, let's see, what else? I can't even remember all of them. There's been about 10 of them. So how are you guys doing today?
Huh?
We're doing excellent, man.
We're doing very well.
Oh, beautiful.
Yep. Okay, so we have quite a bit of questions for you, so hopefully you have a little bit of time to devote to us. But I guess since there's 4 of us that are going to be asking questions, we're kind of going to take turns. So, Chris, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, after WCW folded in 2000, we basically haven't heard much about Barry Darsow. So what have you been doing since the end of WCW?
Well, when I left there, I started my own business, had a printing and promotional company, and got that thing started, and now I am into real estate. And I have called up to the WWE a few times and looking for an agent's job or a writing job up there.
Really?
Yeah. It's hard to stay away from this business.
Mm. Actually, we thought maybe you were an agent because you appeared on the Road Warriors DVD.
Well, when they called me up to do that, they asked me if I wanted to, and, you know, being away from the business for so long, it was kind of a no-brainer to do it. And plus, Animal has been a good friend of mine for a long time, so it was pretty exciting to be able to do that again.
So you have a good relationship with WWE?
Yeah, definitely. You know, when I first went up there, when I met with Vince McMahon, I became, you know, friends with Vince, and he's always done me right. And, you know, a lot of the guys that are up there I've been with for years and years, you know, The Undertaker, and I've known Johnny Ace for a long time, and, you know, it's when you're with these guys for so long, they're like your brothers.
Mm.
Mm. Well, as you can probably understand, we have a lot of questions about your 2.5-year run as a Smash from Demolition. But I actually wanted to start it with your training. According to an internet website, you were a part of a class with Kurt Hennig and Rick Rude and several other eventual stars. Yeah.
You're kind of breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, you're breaking up big time, actually.
Yeah. Can you repeat that question?
I'm sorry for that.
Damn cell phones.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
You were yeah, I apologize for that. According to a website, when you started your training, you were in a class with Kurt Hennig and Rick Rude and a few other eventual superstars. Do you have any stories about your training in the wrestling profession?
Well, Wayne Bloom, who was one of the Beverly brothers, him and I were the ones that first really started training together, and we got into powerlifting, and him and I hold world records still to this day on the 2-man deadlift. And we all bounced at a bar called Grandma B's, and it was John Nord, Kurt Hennig, Hawk of the Road Warriors, Animal, Al Blake, Brady Boone. We had about 10 of us, and Eddie Sharkey was a bartender at the bar, and he told us, he says, you guys ought to get into wrestling. And one of the reasons why he told us that is we used to have contests to see how far we could throw guys out of the bar. And we were all big wrestling fans for a long time. So the big thing was how far we could throw them out the door and roll them down the hill into the river. And when Eddie Sharkey was seeing us do this, he says, "You guys got to get into wrestling." And he started a camp up just for us guys.
Now I got to ask, the guy you're throwing, was he doing that willingly, or no? He was getting thrown out.
They weren't going out the door willingly. No, they were usually guys that caused a little bit of trouble in the bar, and we just launched them right out the front door.
Oh wow!
So that was kind of the start of our wrestling career. Was at that bar.
Wow. Now, we recently interviewed Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and he talked about teaming with you in the Florida territory.
Oh, I love Jim Neidhart.
Yeah, and he credits you for creating or helping to create that goatee of his.
Yeah, in fact,
do you have any? Oh, very good.
Yeah, we were. When I went, I was in Louisiana working for Bill Watts at the time, and I was partners with Nikolai Volkov.
Mm-hmm.
And when I left there, that was kind of when the WWF was really getting going, when the Junkyard Dog went to the WWF, Hulk Hogan went from the AWA to the WWF, and Vince was taking all the big stars from each territory to start the WWF. At that time, I went to Florida, and I lived with Jim Neidhart down there, and we became partners.
Mm-hmm.
And since I was a Russian, and he was Jim the Anvil Neidhart, he had that baby-face looking face to him. And he asked me one day, he says, "What in the world can I do to become a heel?" And I said, "You need to grow that beard out." And he started growing the beard out, and when he was rubbing the beard with his hand, like he always did, it never was long enough, so he ended up growing it out about 6 inches, and that's when he started pulling on the beard, and that started to be his gimmick as Jim the Anvil Neidhart.
So I asked about it.
What about Jim Neidhart?
Yeah.
Well, there's a million stories, but you can't mention all of them on the air, because some of them are pretty wild.
How about the wildest one you got?
Oh, jeez.
The benefit.
Pass on some of those stories. You might get mad.
Okay. The benefit of this interview is that we're actually on tape, so if you want to say something that's a little colorful, we can clip it later.
Yeah. Yep. I better not get into some of the stories.
All right.
They were pretty wild.
I asked him this, and I'll ask you this. Do you think either of you guys got the idea with the beards from ZZ Top?
No, I don't think so. We didn't even really didn't even think about that.
Okay. Maybe ZZ Top got it from you guys.
Yeah, that has to be it. I know the paint I had when I was Demolition. I know Kiss copied me with the red tongue.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Patrick, you want to take the next one?
Yes, absolutely. You mentioned that you teamed with Nikolai Volkov, but another memorable part of your career that I really enjoyed was you were teaming with Ivan Koloff, the evil Russian character. I believe you feuded with the Road Warriors for a while. But what do you think of that tag team?
Ivan Koloff was probably he taught me more in the wrestling business than anything, than anybody. Ivan Koloff was what an unbelievable worker he was in the ring. When we tagged up, it was like it clicked just perfect. Because I was the bigger of the two of us, and he was more of the worker. So when we were in there, he taught me how to work like a smaller guy. And that part of my career was absolutely the greatest time I think I've ever had. When we used to do angles with the Rock and Roll Express, that was probably some of the best matches that I've ever been in, and it was because of Ivan Koloff.
Wow.
Okay, Patrick, you can take the next one.
Sure. You were talking about how you were like a bodybuilder and how you got into wrestling. I wanted to know how do you like being able to be part of the revolution that redefined professional wrestling in the 80s, where it became less classical wrestling and more about big, bulky, big guys?
Oh, it was incredible. In fact, when we all were starting to get into the business, we all, worked out with the weights probably, 4 or 5 years before we got in the business, and we were all pretty big and strong. And growing up watching wrestling, the big strong guys were, Larry the Axe Hennig was one of the big guys, but none of them were all really weightlifting people. So we knew when we got in the business, if we could be big, strong, and be able to move, that we could end up getting in the business. Because back then, to get into wrestling, you had to go through Vern Gagne's camp, which was really a tough camp. And Brad Ringens was one of the guys that trained you. And if you weren't an amateur wrestler and, were a legitimate shooting wrestler, you couldn't get in the business. So with all of us weightlifting and do all that, it kind of put a new twist into getting into the business. And I think it changed the whole attitude of what everybody was watching on TV, because they loved the big, strong guys just beating people up. And it was so realistic, actually, you really did beat people up.
Well, now we come to the demolition questions. When you joined the WWF back in the day, you adopted the Smash character after Randy Cullen, recognized as Moondog Rex. Were you brought in just to fill the Smash role, or were there other plans for you and they just teamed you with Bill?
No, in fact, when I was I was working for Jim Crockett Promotions at the time in the NWA, and I had what happened is they promised me a certain amount of money for a match, and I didn't get it, so I ended up getting in a fight with Jim Crockett. And when I quit there, I didn't have a job, and I talked to Earl Hebner, who was one of the referees down there.
Right.
He talked to Dave Hebner up in New York and mentioned to Vince McMahon that I was available. So Vince flew me up there, and at that time, Bill Eadie told Vince, he said that the demolition gimmick wasn't going to work because of Randy Cawley. And it wasn't because Randy couldn't work or anything. It was just that everybody was screaming out Moondog Rex and all this stuff, and it really took away from the gimmick. It almost was like a comedy.
Right.
So Vince, Rob, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah. Vince brought me specifically to be Smash.
Good. Well, I guess the question we have to ask, it was asked to you on the DVD. A lot of people say that Vince really wanted to recreate the Legion of Doom, and when we saw the Powers of Pain and things like that, it was clear. I personally do not think Demolition was a knockoff, but do you think Demolition was a knockoff of the Legion of Doom, Road Warriors?
No, it wasn't a knockoff, because it was two different ways of working. We would work with everybody. If they were small guys, big guys, whatever, it kind of had the similar look, but it wasn't a knockoff. It was a whole different team. And I think the long-term plan for him was to bring the Road Warriors in and have us, the strong tag team in the WWF, and bring the Road Warriors in and work our angle together. So it wasn't a knockoff that he was thinking, and I didn't feel it was that way, because we were two completely different teams.
Right. Were you upset to see how you were the only one who defended that in the Road Warrior DVD?
No, not at all. Everybody thinks however they want to think,
Right.
And I was in the position, and when I went up there to meet with Vince, he never once ever even mentioned the Road Warriors, and nobody up there ever even mentioned it. So for all the years that I was Smash, I never even heard of that until after the whole thing was done.
Wow. Well, one thing I wanted to ask. Go ahead, Pat.
Okay. One thing I wanted to ask. You mentioned them eventually feuding you with the Road Warriors, and Vince had those teams in late '90, '91, but there was never really a big payoff match between the two teams. Why didn't they go all the way with that feud?
And that's what I was really disappointed about, because Vince came to me one day and he says, "Hey, what do you think about bringing the Road Warriors in?" And I was really excited about them coming in, because that was finally going to be, I think, probably the Demolition's biggest rival, the biggest thing that, you know, the Demolition could have ever done, but they didn't want it to be that big. And I don't know if it was because of, you know, it would have been a main event, and the main event guys didn't want us to be the main event, and that's kind of what I'm thinking. You know, they didn't want to have that be the main match at a WrestleMania, or, you know, so they just kept it down, and they didn't build it to be the main thing. And I really honestly don't know why, but somebody had to just say, hey, let's ixnay this thing.
Oh.
Okay, well, I've got an actual question. When you started with the WWF as part of Demolition, you paired with Mr. Fuji. Now, he asked Neidhart this, and he agreed with it. Was Mr. Fuji a bigger ribster, as his legend seems to indicate?
Is he a big what?
Ribber.
Oh, he's the king of the ribbers. Yeah, him and Kurt Hennig and the Dynamite Kid and you know, those guys were probably the biggest ribbers that you could even have, and you never ever did anything to one of them, because if you did, all the other guys would team up against you.
Oh boy.
Wow. You had to be friends with all of them.
Let me answer this question then. What was the biggest rib you ever saw Fuji pull?
Oh, jeez. One time he drove a car in a pool. But I'll tell you, here's another one he did. Sheik Adnan El Casey used to ride with him up in New York all the time. And every time the Sheik would get in his car, Fuji he always had his bag lunch already made up ahead of time and everything. And Adnan would go eat his sandwich and just laugh at Fuji. And after a few days, Fuji said, you know, heck with this guy here. He went and got Adnan's dog and made a sandwich out of his dog.
Oh.
And then Adnan said, hey, this is the best sandwich I ever had. And Fuji goes, oh, I'm glad you like it. That's your dog. True story.
Oh, my God.
Fuji was, you never messed with Fuji. And if you were friends with Fuji, Fuji was the greatest guy in the world. That's pretty heavy, huh?
Wow. Yeah, that's to say the least. Yeah, that's pretty heavy. Yeah. All right, so here's an interesting question for you. You guys are both really good talkers, yourself and Bill Eadie, who was Axe, obviously. The urban legend around wrestling is that a manager is put with somebody because the two guys can't talk or whatever. I know that's not really always the case, but why do you think they paired you up with Fuji?
Fuji would help us win, so it made us heels. If we were just together, just Bill and I, we were so strong that the people would have ended up liking us. But with Fuji there to help cheat or do whatever, it made us heels.
Oh, okay.
All right, well, we've heard a lot of praise about these next two, and you actually, as Demolition, defeated them for your first tag team title reign. What was it like working with Tito Santana and Rick Martel?
Oh, man, those are two of the best workers in the business. Those were two guys that anything that you did, they made you look good, and you could make them look good. And they were real gentlemen, too. Good guys. And I talked to Tito probably about a month ago, and Tito was doing really well. I haven't talked to Rick for a long time, but they were two very good friends of mine, too.
Now, I was watching WWE 24/7. It's that on-demand service they have on TV.
Yeah.
And they had a Saturday Night's Main Event airing, and I forget who you were facing, but you guys came out, and for some reason, they stripped your theme song.
When was that?
That was, it aired just the past week. They, for whatever reason, they're not letting any of the 24/7 appearances that you guys make, they're not putting on the Rick Derringer Demolition theme song.
Boy, I don't know why that would be. I never saw that. So they had us walking out to the ring or what?
They had you walking out to the ring, but they had, like, the audio of what was actually being said was turned down, and some, like, loud, generic music was being played.
Huh. Well, that's strange. When Rick Derringer had that song for us, that was a big hit.
Yeah.
That helped make the Demolition.
That was one of the best theme songs I've remembered.
Yeah, still to this day, that's one of the best
Honestly,
songs.
that's my personal favorite.
Yeah, and mine too. I thought that helped make the Demolition.
Yeah, I have a story to say. See, I'm a theme collector myself.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of these on CD, and yeah, I mean the one song that I play all the time is the Demolition song. Here Comes the Action, the Smasher, and you know, it always makes me think back that was a cool song.
Yeah, I've been away from the business for a long time, and I watch the shows here and there, and I don't know really what goes on with everything now in the background. When you call up to the WWE, it's hard to talk to everybody because everybody's so busy and everything. But yeah, I don't know why in the world they would do that. Unless Rick Derringer pulled it away from the Action Smash, I don't know.
Okay, I just wanted to ask you that.
Well, I was watching
Go ahead, Pat.
Okay. Yeah, I was watching Survivor Series 1989, I believe, the other day, and then they had you guys, Action Smash, with Hulk Hogan, Jake Roberts going up against Ted DiBiase's team. Did you feel like you had made it big time when you were interacting with such big main event stars?
Oh, yeah. Well, we already knew we made it big time before that. But was that the match when we were in Chicago?
I believe so.
Might have been.
Oh, what a story for that one. Jake the Snake Roberts came in the dressing room, and he had a snake that was like 28 feet long. And he was so excited about this snake. And I looked at Hulk, and I said, Hulk, what the heck is he doing here? And Hulk said to Jake, he goes, there ain't no way I'm carrying that snake out to the ring. And I came in, and I went to grab the snake, and the snake went up with his mouth open. And, I mean, it was ready to bite you.
Ooh.
And the head on that snake was about the size of a basketball. So we all got together and told Jake, there ain't no way we're carrying that dang snake out to the ring because, for one thing, 28 feet long, it's going to be hard to get it to the ring, and if it got loose, I mean, it'd be a stampede of people around. So Jake brought another snake that was a smaller one. He took the big snake and put it in he always carried it in a green knapsack in a trunk. Well, after the whole show was done and everything, somebody forgot to take the trunk out of the arena, and the snake got out of there and was crawling around in the horizon at the Chicago horizon.
Oh, boy.
And a maintenance man found it, and I guess he almost had a heart attack seeing this dang snake. And they had the fire department, the police department, they had everybody coming down to get this snake out of there.
Oh, my.
Unbelievable. 28-foot snake.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Well,
I would not mess with that thing.
Yeah. You then lost the in '89. You lost the tag titles to Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson. Again, same question. What would they like to work with?
Arn Anderson to this day is still one of my best friends, and I talk to him quite a bit. It was a pleasure, working with Arn Anderson and Tully. I really didn't like Tully very much. I mean, he was an okay guy, but because of Arn was one of the reasons why we worked with him. And that was, Arn is one of the best workers in the business, and just to be in the ring with him was, one of the greatest moments in wrestling, and, to have a chance to do an angle with those guys and drop the belts, it was fantastic. You can't ask for a better guy than Arn Anderson.
A lot of people say that Tully had kind of a chip on his shoulder.
Oh, he was. I don't know if you remember when he hit me on the head with that chair.
Yeah.
It about killed me. It chipped a couple of my teeth and chipped a bone in my neck. I was ready to kill him. I never got to get back at him after that because he ended up quitting wrestling after that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a bad one. But he just didn't care about anybody else but himself.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, again, going back to your Demolition days, you lost the belts and then regained them at WrestleMania 6 versus the Colossal Connection, Andre the Giant and Haku.
Andre and Haku.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved both those guys.
Well, everybody has an Andre story. Could you give us an Andre story?
Oh, I got a good Japan Andre story.
Okay.
It was me and Axe and Andre. We were in Japan. We just flew over there.
Mm-hmm.
And when Andre knocked on your door and said, "Let's go out," you went out with him. And try to keep up drinking beer with him or booze, there's just no way you can. Well, this night, Andre decided to really get hammered. And Bill and I looked at each other and thought, what in the world are we going to do with this guy if he gets that drunk? Because I'd never seen him really drunk.
Right.
So Andre said, hey, I got a great restaurant. Let's go to this restaurant. Well, we get to this place in a little alley in the middle of nowhere, and there's about 30 steps that go down to this little door downstairs. And I could barely fit down the steps to get there. And Andre's trying to get down, and we finally get downstairs. And we're having this party with about 50 Japanese people there, and everybody in the bar is just completely gone. And Andre can't even stand up anymore. So it's time to leave. About 4 o'clock in the morning, and Bill and I looked at it, at each other and said, how in the world are we going to get him up the stairs? So Andre could barely even fit through the door, and the stairway was even more narrower than that.
Oh, boy.
So it's time to leave. The owner of the bar says, okay, everybody's got to get out of here. Well, Bill and I told the Japanese guys, help get us this big guy out of this building. So about 20 Japanese guys get underneath Andre. They look like a bunch of little ants trying to push this huge giant up the stairs. And Andre's making like he's bigger than what he is. You can believe that. And these guys get him up about 3, 4, 5 steps, and then Andre just falls back, rolls down the steps, laughing, lands on these Japanese guys. Half of them are about dead. And they were laughing their heads off so much because this was the biggest thing that they trying to get Andre the Giant up the steps. And it took about 2 hours to finally get him up the steps. And then we got him in one of the little... And about 10 different cabs wouldn't take him in the cab. And finally Andre picked up the side of the car and said, let me in the cab. And he laid across the back seat of the car with his feet out one end and his head out the other end, and was going through Tokyo like that. And we were in a cab following him, laughing our heads off. Wow. True story.
Oh,
Wow.
All right. Well, we have a question about Haku. Everyone from Jim Duggan to Ted DiBiase to everyone who ever worked with him said Haku was the toughest person to ever be in wrestling. Is that true?
Haku could have been maybe the toughest guy in the world. He was the one guy who, if you went into a restaurant, he would take a chair and pull it out for a lady. He would treat women so well, and his friends were like the greatest people in the world. But if he went into that restaurant and somebody gave him a hard time, you would look in his eyes and you would say, this guy's a killer. And he could take on the whole bar. He could take on 20 guys and beat them all up. And if you know him, you would never think that he's like that. But I've seen him absolutely go crazy. And Haku is, and he probably still is the toughest guy in wrestling. He's a, it's like when he gets mad, he's like an animal.
wow.
Yeah. Unbelievable, nice guy, biggest heart ever, the sweetest guy you could ever meet. Why would anybody ever want to get him mad? I don't know. But they do.
Wow. Okay.
Well, shortly after WrestleMania 6, they added Crush to the Demolition team. What do you think about being paired up with Crush?
Crush was a great guy. Me and him, we traveled together for a long time, and he was just, I really enjoyed having him as a partner. When they phased Bill out, it was hard because Bill and I were very good friends. But when Crush came in, it just, being the nice guy that he is, it made up for it. And he was a young guy, so it helped me because now I was starting to get a little bit older and starting to hurt where he could pick up the slack for me.
Why do you think Axe was being phased out?
Well, when Axe got sick at one time, and he had an allergic reaction to shrimp, and I think at the time they didn't know if he was going to be able to come back from that, and that's when they were bringing Crush in, and I think Crush was such a good idea and working out so well. Then you couldn't get rid of Crush, and then that's when the Road Warriors were coming in, and then they were kind of phasing the whole Demolition team out of the whole picture. So, I think that was just kind of the start of it.
We were just talking before the show, and what went through your mind when Vince pulled out the costume and it was
3, 4, 5-year deal when we were still there. So I think that's why they brought that out, just to kill us off.
Oh, wow.
Do you also think that's why when you faced excuse me if I get these names wrong, Benicio Tenryu and Koji Katal at WrestleMania 7, do you think they were just trying to push you guys out of the company?
Yeah, I think that was exactly, but we wrestled in Japan too, and it gave them a boost over in Japan. So then that gave us a angle to go to Japan with. And, we wrestled Andre and Giant Bob over there at the Egg Dome. And
oh, wow.
That was probably the biggest match I've ever had in my life. And both Bill and I were, good business people. We did what we were told, and we didn't complain about anything. And Vince McMahon really took care of us. I have no hard feelings about anything. He did right.
The rumor is that Axe, Billy Eadie, tried to sue once he left to have the rights to use the Demolition name.
He did.
What did you think of that?
I thought it was terrible because it hurt. It really hurt me, in fact, because he never talked to me about it or anything, and I thought I was a major factor that made the Demolition. I think without Barry Darsow coming in as Smash, the Demolition wouldn't have made it. And I thought that it could have brought somebody in that position, and I don't think it would have got over as much as, how I helped out the deal. And as soon as Bill sued Vince McMahon over the name, Vince don't care about that. He just said, go ahead, take the name. Without his TV, you're nothing. And I think if Bill wouldn't have ever done that, the Demolition could have came back a year later, or 2 years, or even came back now and did some things on TV. So Bill Eadie really, I think, really screwed the whole thing.
Well, we next saw you in the WWF when you came back as the repossessor, the Repo Man. What did you think of that gimmick?
That was the funnest gimmick ever. When I came in there to do that, the reason why I did that was I eventually wanted to be a babyface and go to, hospitals and see kids and do autograph sessions and all that kind of stuff. And to me that was fun because I've already did everything else. And the Repo Man, you didn't have to think of anything that you wanted to do in the ring. You just goofed around, had fun, had a good time. And Vince never did turn to babyface, and that was kind of a bummer. But I really liked being the Repo Man, though.
I also have to add before we continue that in at least my top 10, the Repo Man thing is probably up there, my favorite. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. What was funny was I was 320 pounds, and I went down to 245 pounds to become the Repo Man, so I was a completely different character. And every gimmick that I've ever done, I've actually became that person.
Wow.
I became that Repo Man.
Yeah. Why did you leave the WWE or then WWF?
Well, it just, I had a son that was young, and I hadn't been home for years, and I was kind of, as the Repo Man, it was just a regular job, and it wasn't real exciting anymore. And I had a match with Randy Savage in New York, and that was one of the first times, I think it was Monday Night Raw or something. Our ratings were really high on it. And I don't know if you ever seen the one. I stole Randy Savage's hat and stamped on it, and I came in on a tow truck and all that stuff. And after that match, when the ratings were up and everything, I'm always reality in the wrestling. You know if something's going to get over or not get over.
Right.
Well, I knew my position, and my position was just to be in the middle of the Repo Man and get people over.
Right.
At that time, I actually thought if they could have did something with the Repo Man, that I actually could have been up to a semi-main event for a while and went back down and worked my way up to get other guys over, to make them. And I never got that position that I wanted.
Right.
And then it was just like every day it was like going to a regular job every day, and it wasn't fun anymore. And, it's like you guys, you don't want to just keep doing what you're doing. You want to make this show the biggest show ever.
Right.
So if you know it's just going to stay right where it's at, it's like, well, why are we doing this?
Exactly.
And that's kind of what the Repo Man got to that point where it's like, I'm not going any further here, and I want to be a baby face, and the people don't really even care I'm in the ring anymore. It's like, why do you got to know when your time is done. It's like right now, somebody said, "Hey Barry, why don't you get into the ring?"
Right.
Why go? I'm out of shape. I'm brutal looking, and there's my heart's in it, but my body ain't in it. It'd be terrible to go in the ring. You'd make a fool of yourself.
Right.
That's how I look at it.
Up next, you did some of the what was that? Some of the AWF tapings, and they had the I think it's like European ring style systems where they have the rounds and such. Yeah. What did you think of working for that company, and did you think that it was going to take off?
I thought for sure it was going to take off. If they would have had money backing and all that stuff, it would have definitely made it, because the TV show had the makings of being a good TV show.
Yeah, it did.
And, the longer it's on, when talent leaves the WCW or leaves WWF, they could come in there, it would have been another place to go. And, the whole thing to make in the territory is, the talent that you have there and the money to buy the TV time to get the people to come there and make it exciting. And the more money you have and the more talent you can bring in, the more exciting you can make it. Yeah, it would have definitely made it.
So after your run with the AWF, you joined the WCW. What were the differences between the way WCW and the WWF were run?
Oh, two completely different situations. Vince McMahon was a genius. He, that's why he's successful. That's why he owns everything. He grew up in the wrestling business. He knew what to do to make it happen. And WCW was a television show, and that was it. They weren't there to make money in the house shows every night, where Vince McMahon made money in the house shows and did the TV. WCW was more of just a TV wrestling show. Right. That was the two big differences, I thought.
Well, I have to ask you about this.
Go ahead, Pat.
Okay. I have to ask you about this. You became the Blacktop Bully character, and one of the most unique gimmick matches I've ever seen was the King of the Road match, where you wrestled Dustin Rhodes in the back of a truck. What do you think about that match?
Was that a bummer or was that a bummer? Dustin and I had in fact, they cut out about 10 minutes of that match, and Dustin and I had the time of our life. It was one of the funnest matches ever, and we beat our brains in that match, and, they ended up firing both of us and cut out the best parts of the whole match. It was very disappointing to get fired over that match.
Wait, what? They fired you guys over that match?
Yeah, we got fired.
Okay, now, I consider myself a pretty well-versed wrestling person who knows all the backstage stories. I don't know that. So
you didn't know we got fired? That's both of us got fired because of that match.
What did you do that made them do that?
Well, you weren't supposed to have any blood on TV. And Dustin and I were bleeding from head to toe. And the next morning after that match, because it was supposed to be a uncensored match, anything goes.
Right.
Well, yeah, hitting the cage and barbed wire and all this, you'd hit each other in the heads, and we were bleeding from the head, and our backs were all bloody from the cage. And, well, when the whole thing was done, they were back in the editing room, and Ted Turner's group got a hold of it with the blood, and they said, you can't have that on there. And Eric Bischoff ended up calling me the next morning, and I thought he was going to call me and say, Barry, that's one of the greatest matches ever. Well, he called me and said, Barry, I have to let you know that Ted Turner in the main office weren't happy with all the blood in the truck. I'm going to have to fire you.
Oh.
He said, you got to be kidding me.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I mean, it went a lot further than that. But Eric promised me that he was going to hire me back in a year if I didn't cause any trouble leaving. And I ended up leaving, and then I came back, and I did have a job back there.
Well, that's good. I didn't even know that. That's
well, there was also a rumor that one of the road agents said, go ahead and cut yourself or go ahead and blade, and that was probably a trick to get you two fired because they were trying to cut wrestlers off the staff. Have you heard anything like that?
No, I never heard anything like that because we didn't have to cut our heads. I mean, it was a brutal match. In fact, the first thing, Dustin hit me in the head with a garbage can or something, and my head just blew wide open.
Oh, wow.
And then I threw him against a shovel, and he hit the back of his head on the shovel, and then right away, blood all over in his blonde hair, you know. So, I mean, it was, we were in a dang truck going down the highway with a steel cage and shovels and picks, and, I mean, how do you have a match without getting hurt? So they didn't even care really about what really happened to us. They just said, hey, you got blood on you, you're fired. And I said, well, why don't you fire the whole camera crew? Why don't you fire everybody? Because they should know there shouldn't be blood on TV. Why'd they film it? Yeah. You know, but, yeah, they wanted us gone.
Oh, wow.
So I'm probably one of the only guys in wrestling that did what anybody wanted to do, and I got fired more than anybody.
Did you enjoy the Blacktop Bully character?
I loved it. That was another one I thought they could have really went a long ways with. But you know, when you're not in the boss's back pocket, you can only go so far.
Oh well. Now, when they brought you back as hole-in-one Barry Darsow, the golfer.
Yeah.
Where did the character come from?
I was talking to Terry Taylor one day, and I told him, I said, hey, I was just on a celebrity. I used to play in a bunch of celebrity golf tournaments around the country. Mm-hmm. And I told him, I said, yeah, I just played golf someplace. And Terry goes, Jesus Christ, you had to make that a gimmick. I said, well, let's call me Mr. Hole-in-One and let me bring a golf club, and I'll just beat everybody with a golf club. He goes, let's do it. And that was it. That was Hole-in-One Darsow.
I used to enjoy when we used to bring out, I used to call it the Price is Right thing, where they play golf.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I used to love that. That was really funny. Are you surprised they didn't, start, well, they did it a couple times on Nitro, but for the most part, it was designated to Saturday night.
Right. Well, they didn't want me to get over.
They didn't?
No, shoot, if they want you to get over, they can make you get over.
Right.
It's just something different on TV, which I didn't mind. Who cares?
As long as the checks were clearing, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're not the main people there, it's all the same.
Hmm.
So also on the Saturday night WCW show, they teased a schizophrenic gimmick with you reliving all your old gimmicks. Did you enjoy doing that? And do you wish they had gone all the way with it?
Now, what was that? I can't remember that.
From week to week, they'd have you in a different character that you used to play. Like one week you had on a Blacktop Bully shirt, and the announcer, Scott Hudson, was like, well, you can't think what gimmick he's going to play this week, or something like that.
See, and I never even knew that.
Oh, really?
Isn't that funny? out there and did what I had to do, and I never even knew they were doing that on TV. I wish they would have told me, because then I could have played it. You know?
Yeah. Oh, well.
Oh, what the heck. Yeah, it was a fun time.
Well, yeah.
I met the greatest guys in the whole world at the time of my life for almost 18 years. Unbelievable. That's why I'd love to be an agent again, just to be around all the guys and watch them have fun now.
Yeah. And certainly they could use you right now.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I just called last week again, left a message for John, and Johnny Ace told me, he goes, yeah, if there's an opening, I definitely would love to have you up there. So my name's in the hat again. I haven't pursued it for years until just about the last 3-4 months. So, you know, it'd be fun to go back and be with the guys again.
I hear Ricky Steamboat and a bunch of others are also doing the agent thing right now. Yeah,
and I was going to call Dusty. I haven't talked to Dusty in ages. I get a Christmas card from him and his wife every year.
Oh, wow. Well, you being one of the one member of probably one of the most well-known tag teams of all time, what do you think about the state of tag teams today, the tag team wrestling?
Well, you know, right now, the guys in wrestling are a lot better athletes than what we were. I think in our time, we could think of better matches that everybody can do, and we were good athletes, but not like what they're doing now. And they're not pushing the tag teams as much as they did when we were in it. I think if they did, the tag teams would be over a lot more now than they were back then. And it's just like they're not using the tag teams as, how they should be. I think the tag team could draw a lot more people than what they are doing.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they
absolutely.
Yeah, they just don't really care about the tag team very much right now. And I think it could be just phenomenal. And I don't know the inside reason why they're not. And it's probably because in a tag team it takes 4 people to have that match, so there's that much more money going towards that match. And if there's 2 people, it's less people to fly to the town. It's less, it saves them a lot more money not having all the tag teams.
Well, here's a question. Yeah, here's a question you might have to think about. Of all the characters you played in your entire illustrious career, which one would you say was your favorite?
My favorite was probably Smash. The funnest one was the Repo Man. The Crusher Khrushchev was the one that helped me become Smash and the Repo Man, because I really learned the wrestling business as Crusher Khrushchev. How's that for you?
What was your least favorite?
My least favorite was probably Hole-in-One Darsow.
Any reason?
Well, yeah, because I was just out there for shits and giggles, I mean, it wasn't a serious thing. It didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Well, we'd like to end this with a few word associations, and we thank you for your time.
Okay.
Basically, if you have a story, feel free to share.
Okay.
If you only want to give a one-word answer, that's fine too.
Okay.
First one on our list is your manager, the first manager of Demolition, Mr. Fuji.
The greatest guy in the world. Don't ever cross him.
He'll make you eat your dog.
Right. It's a bad deal if you cross Mr. Fuji.
Okay. Well, how about the model Rick Martel?
Rick Martel was probably what a gentleman.
All right. Well, how about one of the Road Warriors, Road Warrior Hawk?
One of the biggest hearts that you can even run across that nobody knew he had.
Right.
How about Animal?
I got one. Oh, go ahead.
What's that, Animal?
Yes.
Yeah, Animal.
Animal is a good friend.
Patrick. Yeah. Patrick.
How about Hulk Hogan?
Hulk Hogan was the icon.
How about someone you wrestled from the Hart Foundation, Bret Hart?
Bret Hart was one of the greatest technicians in the ring.
Well, I have to admit that one of my favorite matches of all time was the 2 out of 3 falls match from SummerSlam '90.
Oh, Madison Square Garden?
Yeah, that was a great match.
Oh, man. That was fun with those guys.
Yeah.
Jim and Bret, they were good guys, boy. I loved them.
Mm-hmm.
Last time I saw Bret was at Kurt Hennig's funeral, in fact.
Oh, really? Well, since you just mentioned him, how about Kurt Hennig?
Oh, I love Kurt Hennig. I grew up with him. Great family guy. One of the biggest ribbers around, and he was a very good friend of mine.
How about a member of the Rockers tag team and a member of our forums, Marty Jannetty?
Marty Jannetty, what he was a good guy and a lot of fun to go out with.
That's putting it plainly, yeah.
I bet a lot of people have said that too.
Yeah, actually, we have the benefit of having him on our discussion board.
Oh, really?
And he comes on every once in a while and he talks to people, and every once in a while he brings a story that he must have put in his head somewhere.
Right.
And it's some of the funniest stuff you'll ever read.
Oh, he's a good guy.
Well, how about one of your former bosses, Jim Crockett?
Jim Crockett?
Mm-hmm.
A weasel.
Yeah.
A weasel. Now, I got to ask you, because I'd be hung if I didn't. You mentioned you kind of got into a fight with him. Was it a verbal fight, or did fists exchange?
Well, it was, what had happened was, Ivan Koloff and myself, we wrestled the Rock and Roll Express for about 4 months all the way around the whole territory.
Mm-hmm.
And I was promised by Dusty Rhodes that I was going to have a match in the Great American Bash against the Rock and Roll Express for the titles.
Mm-hmm.
And Nikita Koloff, we were the 6-man champions.
Mm-hmm.
At the last minute, Jim Crockett wanted Nikita in the match. And they kicked me out of the match, and I had a match with Sam Houston. They said, Jim, I worked for 4 months to have this match, and this is my big payoff for the year. Is this going to hurt me for my payoff? He says, no, you're going to get paid the same working with Sam Houston as you would have if you were in that match.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we ended up having the whole thing. It was an unbelievable night. I got my paycheck a week later. My paycheck was about an eighth of what Nikita and Ivan made.
Oh, wow.
And I went to Dusty, and I said, Dusty, I was promised this payoff, and I said, whatever I say, I do, and I expect everybody else to do that. And he says, Barry, I'm really sorry. He says, that's just how it's going to be paid off and everything. And I said, Dusty, I said, this is the shit. I said, I need to go talk to Jim Crockett.
Mm-hmm.
And Dusty said to me, he goes, Barry, please don't go talk to Jim. And because he knew if I was going to go talk to Jim, I was either going to punch him out or quit. Or punch him out and quit. I said, Dusty, I'm sorry. I love you. You're my brother. I said, but you know, as a man, I had to go talk to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
I went into Jim Crockett's office, and he looked at me like I was a piece of shit. And I said, Jim, I was promised this payoff. I want this payoff. And it just so happened right before it, somebody else already dragged him through the hallway and put the boots to him for a payoff. So I really couldn't do that, but I said, Jim, I want this pay. And it's what it was promised me. And Jim says, that's what you're going to get paid. If you don't like it, leave. And that's when I walked into Dusty's office. I said, Dusty, I'm sorry. I have to put my notice and I'm leaving today. And he says, Barry, baby, please don't go, Barry, baby. And that's when I got the horn and I went to the WWF.
Mm-hmm. That had to be one of the wiser decisions of your career, though.
Yeah, so if I if Jim wouldn't have looked like he got the crap kicked out of him, I probably would have kicked out of him. But Gary, and in fact, I think.
Well, speaking of the WWF, how about Vince McMahon?
Vince McMahon is a genius.
Actually, I wanted to go back to Dusty for a second. Yeah. When they brought him into the WWF and gave him the polka dot gimmick, a lot of people say it was for some reason a rib on him.
Yeah.
You think it was?
I thought that they thought that they were going to rib him and bring him down to nothing and make it so ridiculous that it made fun of him.
Right.
He ended up turning around and made it work.
Right.
That's how big Dusty is. That's how good he is. I love Dusty.
Well, once again, you really can't thank you enough for this. This has been a pleasure and an honor for me, and I'm sure everyone else enjoyed them as well.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you guys. I wish we could go out and have a couple of beers and really tell you the stories, because I'm kind of shy when it comes to telling all the real stories. If I have a couple of beers in me, then I can really start talking, you know.
Oh, man. Well, we'll have to make a plan for that someday.
Yeah, I got a lot of stories.
I'm sure you do.
Oh, wow. Just so you know my last words, the wrestling business is the greatest business in the world, and the friends that you meet in wrestling are lifelong friends. And if anybody has a chance to get into wrestling, get into it.
Really?
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. That kind of goes...
What's that?
I think that's the first. Usually we hear, don't get into business, stay out.
No, you got to get into it with the right attitude, though. Get into it, have the time of your life. It's like a kid going to college again.
I asked Bobby Heenan that question. I'll ask you in a second, but I asked Bobby Heenan what his advice would be to somebody new getting into business, and he said, take a 45 and put it to the roof of your mouth.
That Bobby Heenan, you know, I flew down to Florida one time, and Bobby says, hey, Barry, come on over and let's go golfing. So I said, okay. So I fly into Tampa. Bobby picks me up. We go to this golf course. He says, hey, I got to go stop and get some gas here, and let's go in and buy a six-pack of beer or something. So we get out of the car. We go in there. We come out. The car is running. The keys are locked in the door.
Uh-oh.
And it's about 100 degrees outside, and Bobby looks at me and he goes, can you believe you're the Repo Man and I'm the brains of the operation? I locked the keys in here. You can't really break into that ar. We sat and laughed our heads off. The brain and the Repo Man locking the keys in the car. You had to be there.
Wow.
No, I got it.
We got it.
All right, man. Thanks so much. If there's anything, actually, I did say I would ask you this question. If you were to give somebody advice that's getting in, what advice would that be?
Make sure that you're trained right, and by what I mean trained right, where somebody really tells you the truth and really puts you to the test to see if you can actually get into wrestling, because not anybody can get in. And when you go through a camp with Brad Ringens or, you know, and Brock Lesnar, and you go through the mill, you really learn how to become a professional wrestler. And it's not just some rinky-dink camp that you're going to go to.
Right. Do you have any recommendations on anywhere people should go?
Well, it used to be Brad Ringens' camp, and that was the only one that I would ever tell anybody to go to. And I know Brad doesn't even have a camp anymore. So I don't know where somebody would go now. I suppose call up.
Well, one thing.
What was that?
Well, I'm sorry. Sorry for interrupting. Once again, we really can't thank you enough. And if we could ask for one final favor.
Yeah.
If you could give us a show ID, basically saying, hi, this is Barry Darsow, and you're listening to 3 Count Wrestling.
What's the name of the wrestling?
3 Count.
3 Count Wrestling.
3 Count Wrestling.
Yes.
And so, hi, this is Barry Darsow. You better be listening to 3 Count Wrestling.
Something like that. Yeah, sure.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, I'll count you down, and you can say anything you want. If you want to put whatever spin on it you want, that's cool. You can do that in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hey, how you doing? This is Barry Darsow. You better be watching and listening to 3 Count Wrestling, or else I'm going to kick your stinking teeth in.
I got to give you credit, man. I got to give you credit because you go from this soft-spoken, genuinely nice guy to this loudmouth in no time at all.
Hey, you guys have a good night.
That was awesome.
You take care of yourself. Thanks so much.
Hey, take care.
Take care. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Excellent.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm like a kid in a candy store right now.
Yeah, that was a good interview.
Wow.
I'm like, just walk out.
Hey guys, I want to thank you for checking out this classic interview from the archives of the Wrestling Epicenter. You could check out the archives and so much more at WrestlingEpicenter.com. There you will find news, interviews, the store, and more. Please check it out, www.WrestlingEpicenter.com. Don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube and click that little bell for notifications as we upload new content regularly.